Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Love My Poland. Today I'm standing in a very, very important place for me. This area that you see right here, this building, is the location of my very first apartment. In 1999, October of 1999, I lived right there on the first floor. Those 4 windows were mine. And in that apartment, I learned some valuable lessons about Poland and Polish culture. And today, I want to share some of the lessons I learned with you. So 6 mistakes that I've committed in Poland that nobody should commit, and hopefully you'll be able to learn a little bit about that from me today. The first mistake is dress right according to the weather conditions. You know, I'm kind of a hot-natured guy. I don't need to wear sweaters and scarves and jackets when it's cold outside. If I'm just going to run outside for a moment, I can go out in a t-shirt and shorts, no problem. And there was a time that I did that. It was around 11 p.m. at night. I was right here in my window and I realized I forgot my cassette in the car, my favorite music cassette. It was 18 years ago. So just in my shorts and my t-shirt and my sandals, I ran to my car quickly. My car was parked right about here. I opened the door and I grabbed that cassette. 5 minutes later, I get back to my apartment. I hear a knock on the door. My neighbor upstairs was watching the whole thing from her top window. She screamed at me. My Polish wasn't very good back then. She screamed at me at the top of her lungs, saying that I was going to be sick, and when I got sick, I would infect the whole building. Dang. So she wasn't so much concerned about my health, but the health of the whole building. This is something you're going to encounter. When I told my brother about this, he didn't believe me, and when my brother came to Poland about a year later, he also dressed inappropriately according to the weather conditions. And an older guy stopped him, asked him if he's okay, if everything's okay in his head. Why aren't you wearing a jacket? He couldn't believe it himself, so I kind of translated what happened. So you have to dress right according to the weather in Poland, or else. The second mistake that I made was failing to address people in the correct official manner. You know, in the USA, we can say hello and hi to everybody. It doesn't matter.
In other words, what he's saying, Polish people are really, they're health conscious, because to get upset, in a sense, for someone else's behavior, I mean, something that's rare in my country, unless maybe if you're already sick and maybe you're in a public place and you're sneezing, not putting your hand over your mouth or washing your hands. If someone know you have, you know, a flu or cold, they're gonna get upset. But to not be sick and to worry about you might get sick, the person might get sick and infect you, it's something totally different. I can't even believe what he's saying.
Correct official manner. You know, in the USA, we can say hello and hi to everybody. It doesn't matter if it's a doctor or a professor. We might call that person according to his name, but we greet them with just a hi, especially if you know them. But here in Poland, it is good day. Dzień dobry. You have to use that to address adults. If they're older than you and if they have an official title, it's never a hi gesture. And I made that mistake so many times. I remember one day I was walking not far from my apartment and I met a professor weeks before. And this professor passed me by and I completely forgot. I said Cześć, and I called him Mr. And he politely came over, he smiled, and he said, my name is Professor Novak. I said, I felt bad, I kind of turned red. You have to remember that these official titles are crucial here to living successfully in Poland. Now, one more example while we're on the topic of addressing people officially. One of the neighbors that actually lived, she was a very nice woman, maybe a few years older than I was at that time. I saw her every day in the supermarket and the local shops. I forgot my Polish construction. When you address somebody a little bit older, somebody you don't know well, you have to use that Mr. Mrs. And I failed to use the Mrs. and I referred to her as you on the, we say it, na ty. And she wasn't really happy about that. She turned, she looked at me and she said, nie jesteśmy na ty. We are not on a person-to-person basis where I can say that. I mean, she told me sternly. So I've learned my lessons the hard way by failing to address people the way that I should. So always remember that when you're learning Polish and you're greeting people in Polish. The third mistake I'd like to caution you against is talking to somebody with your hands in the pocket. Now, if it's somebody your age, somebody you know very well, no problem. But if it's somebody you don't know very well, talking with your hands in the pocket is one of the rudest things that you can do in this country. You know, you see President Bush or our President Obama talking very loosely with the hands in the pocket, you know, in the town hall meetings. But here in Poland, if you talk to somebody you don't know well, somebody older like this, it is a big form of disrespect. So never do that. Never talk to somebody you don't know very well with your hands in the pockets. They can kind of...
I remember grown folks saying, don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't put your hands in your pocket. So I can see why this is the big deal. So it's not just in my country. I can see it's an overall thing. Many places have that. Yeah, this one is not surprising because where I'm from, or growing up, this was something also adults always told the young people, don't put your hands in your pocket. Sometimes they were not clear as to why, but it was something that just doesn't look good. That all has to play a part in it.
Construe that as being very, very rude. The fourth mistake that I made when I moved to Poland is an easy one to commit, so remember this one. Never talk to people while chewing gum. If you've got a wad of gum in your mouth and you're talking to somebody like that, here in this country, it's unacceptable. It's hard to believe that I ever committed that mistake looking back now, but it's very, very easy to do. If you're chewing gum and you meet somebody, my advice is throw that gum out quickly and have a discussion. Otherwise, you run the risk of somebody being offended. So no chewing gum and talking to people, especially if they're older. The fifth mistake that I made, I'm a very touchy person. When I meet somebody, I have no problem patting them on the shoulder, giving them a little hug, this and that. Generally, now it's changing with the younger generation, but if you're talking to somebody that's a bit older, somebody over, I guess, let's say 40 years old or so, they're not really big fans of being touched. It's a handshake, and that's pretty much all you need. So anything else might be construed as being too personal and too much, so don't touch so much here in Poland. The sixth and final mistake I'd like to talk to you about today is don't be too personal. Don't ask too many personal questions. I'm a very open person. If I know you just a week or two, it's no problem for me to ask you questions about things that might be too personal. And I don't mean anything by that. That's just kind of how I am. I'll tell you the same thing about my life. But generally speaking, Polish people are more closed than we are in America. So I caution you about asking too many questions too fast. I've been told that I'm a little bit too nosy, so be careful when it comes to asking too many questions.
That list was not really surprising. The only thing that really took me off guard, and I want to know exactly where it's coming from. I understand the titles, especially the general titles, like Mrs., Mr., maybe like Mom, those kind of titles. I don't know if what he's saying there is exaggerated or not, but if it's true when it comes to those titles like the professor and doctor, is it something that's like done for social status, or is it something that just shows that someone is respectful? If someone calls someone that has those titles just Mr. or Mrs., which is still polite in my eyes, why should it be a problem? Or is it just exaggerating? Because I don't know, this sounds a bit exaggerated to me. Hands in your pocket, I've heard that all my life growing up, especially back in those days. They always tell us kids, don't put your hands in your pocket. So that was something that was not a problem because it was instilled in us so young. So I can see how in Poland that is still a big deal. I don't know if it's changing now because we're in 2025. This is an old video, so maybe some parts of the culture has changed. But definitely, this is not strange. It might be strange to some people in other parts of the world that have never heard that, but this one is not strange for me. Yes, I don't know if it's a Caribbean thing, but definitely where I'm from, it's something that was always instilled in the youth. Yeah, so I'm not surprised. But you gotta hit me up on those titles, those social status. If it's just based on a social status thing, which is like a flex, like what we see, not like to just showcase or to show off that you have a title, or is it just something genuinely out of respect that is given? I don't know. You guys gotta hit me up. Polish people, hit me up in the comments. If you want to see a long shot and outro that I do, hit me up on Dyce Reacts, where I do music reactions. This is where I'm gonna be making my exit. Until next time, peace out.